start with an observation which all of us know, that it's really been tough for women through the centuries to make, get their life going in the manner that they want to. And it's been a battle for them, whether it was, not wanting to get married, wanting to study, or wanting to pursue their passion, their interest, whether it is art or any other field. It's always been a struggle. Even those who were very intelligent and wanted to study, Sutapa, they've had such a struggle. And it was not possible until they had someone within the family supporting them. I'm sure that you must be thinking about some very good names who have worked extensively in this field, and not too far off, maybe about 200 to 300 years ago. You could share some of the names and talk about them.
So I think one person that we can definitely mention here is the famous woman from Maharashtra, Savitribai Phule, who got married at a very, very young age. She was in fact a child bride, but she was supported consistently by her husband. And because that happened, he in fact educated her, literally, brought her up as a woman of substance, and later on supported her in opening so many institutions for the education of women, and especially for the women from the lower economic classes, the Dalit women, yes, the Dalit women, and also create, somehow try their best to prevent child marriages, and therefore child widows, at the same time child remarriage, sort of activated against the Sati Pratha. So she was really a person who was supported by her husband. So that way you can say, yes, she had the family support.
But she also had a friend called Fatima Sheikh.
Exactly. She had
who
a friend.
Also was supported by her husband.
Right.
And this endeavor actually was carried on by them. And they started the school when they were less than 20?
Yes, less than 20 about, yeah. And so, we're talking something 1844?
1844.
Yes.
She was born in 1831, and in 1844, they started off the school. So you can imagine how far-sighted they were in their thoughts. But what is also important, Alka, is, the support they got. They got from their male partners. What do you have to say about that in that era?
So I'm going to look back to what Sutapa and Sangeeta said about this particular, or these two particular women who go back to almost 200 years ago. I'm looking back at them through wearing a contemporary lens. And I think that nothing, if you are in a marriage, today people call it a partnership, right? 200 years ago, it was a different kind of a relationship. There wasn't a partnership. It was a kind of, there was a kind of a transactional relationship where the man earned the money and brought it to the house, and the woman took care of the home and the hearth. So I'm looking back at these two women from a contemporary lens and saying that it was a partnership for both. Because if we see Savitri Bai and you see her husband Jyoti Rao, if Jyoti Rao did not support his wife, would she be able to have survived? As in the way today as well, if parents do not support their daughters, or partners do not support, lots of women are thinking out of the box even today. And how do they do it? You always need your partner to be supportive. There is I believe a lot in old adages or sayings. they say 2 से 11 हो जाते हैं. So if your partner is with you, you have the strength to take on the world. And I think with Savitri Phule, this was the case. And I see the same thing continues even today. Of course, lots of women are doing things single-handedly. There are more single moms than before, and they are doing great jobs and bringing up their children, having their career. But they also have support systems by way of either parents or friends or community. So things change. So partnerships are important, and I think Savitri Phule had a great partnership.
Thank you, Alka. Apart from education, Savitribai Phule actually worked on a topic which was rather painful for the girls. There were many who had been sexually abused, raped, and they got impregnated. And obviously, they were ostracized by the family. And she started a center which supported such girls. Sutapa, I think she also adopted a child from such a...
Yes. So from the same home, because they didn't have children, she adopted a boy, Yashwant Rao, who grew up to become a medical specialist. He became a doctor. And during the bubonic plague, they opened a home near Pune, and he treated patients over there. Both he as well as Savitribai. Of course, Savitribai passed away in this plague. So you see, I mean, when they did good, the good just transformed into so much more in the society. So I think she's definitely a woman who we should remember when we are talking about women in history.
Very correctly put. She set the trend for education. She set the trend for partnerships, support systems. She set the trend for supporting other women and girls who were abused or who were suppressed. And she set the trend for adoption. And it's all something done in the 1800s, which was a rather dark period for the Indian history. Talking of education, Rashima, it was also very difficult for someone forget high school, but then becoming a professional in whatever field they chose, whether it was a scientist or a medical doctor or a professor, teacher. How difficult it would have been then, in your perception, since you are from the corporate world, and who comes to your mind?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. So when you think from the contemporary perspective, modern India, modern globally, we are women. I think we are privileged. We have a right to education. We have a right to support. And these are all rights that we take for granted. It's a part of our daily life. So it's not even something that we consciously think about. But so many decades back, or if you go back so many years, it wasn't so easy. It wasn't something that was a given. It was something that women had to consciously fight for, consciously attain for themselves. And like you rightly said, if they had the support of their family, I think it was something that they were able to attain. So I think, again, somebody from Maharashtra, Rakmabai comes to my mind. She was born in a Maharashtrian family. And back then, things that were unthinkable today were pretty much commonplace. So she was a child bride, and she was married off at the age of 11. I think it was 11? At least...
it was 9, if I'm not wrong, because after that, the Right to Consent Act was passed, which raised the age to 12.
12. So I think it was something maybe 10.
Maybe, okay.
Around 10. She was very young. And she was married to a relative, somebody who was related to her. She had lost her parents also. And she didn't want to lead a family life. She didn't want to be a married woman. And there was a court case that went on later between her and her husband.
Yes.
When it came to consummating the marriage. And she valiantly fought that. She appealed to Queen Victoria, and in the end she emerged victorious, not only for herself, but also for a lot of other women out there, because of her valor and her insistence to keep fighting it, the age, the consent age went up to 12, right?
Yes.
And she went on to complete her education. She became one of colonial India's first women physicians. So I think these are the kind of examples that really come to my mind. And I honestly feel that these were women of valor.
Talking of, fighting and resisting marriage and getting into a field of their choice, obviously it means that you need to have a voice, you need to have a support, and you need to have that fire within you to revolt. Sutapa, there are some women warriors in our history who really need to be spoken of. Without adding anything further, I would just like you to take us through that.
You're so right, Sangeeta. War has always been a male bastion, but there have been warrior queens. And though we know about Lakshmi Bai and so many others, there are certain warrior queens about whom very little is known. And one of them is Rani Abaka Chauta of the Tulawa queen of Ulava, which if people don't know the geographical location, it's Mangalore. And she lived, she was in fact the first woman freedom fighter against the colonization of India. And we're not talking about the British, because the European traders not all of them had come to India at that time. We're talking about something like the late 15th century. So it was the Portuguese who had first come, and they conquered Goa. And then they started controlling the spice route, actually, to India. Rani Abaka, as a young child, was trained in warfare. She knew how to wield the sword. She was also trained to be a very able administrator, and also in diplomatic strategies. And then she came on to the throne. She was married off to the king of Banga, but the marriage did not work out, and she returned to Ulava after a few years. This queen was a Jain as far as religion goes, but her kingdom had both Muslims and Hindus, and she was able to keep her kingdom united, and that helped her when she had to face the Portuguese conquerors or the colonizers. So they wanted that a tribute must be paid by Rani Abaka, which she refused, and she continued to trade with the Arab merchants. So, and also Ulava was a very strategic port. So the Portuguese thought, what will this 30-year-old girl do to us? And they just sent a small army to conquer Ulava, which the queen and her army defeated very easily. They went back, and Portuguese went back and attacked her again. Again they were defeated. And then they sent a huge navy, an armada, and an army to Ulava. Finally, after a very, very fierce battle with her army, they were able to conquer Ulava. But the queen escaped. And at night, she came back with her army, and she reconquered Ulava, and she killed the Portuguese generals. So this is the kind of queen she was. And she was supported by her entire army. And later on, her daughters, she trained her daughters also to sit on that throne and protect Ulava. Ulava never became a Portuguese colony, never ever, actually. And if you go to Ulava, there is a festival which is held in her name, and there is a Rani Abaka award which is given to distinguished women. And the Indian Coast Guard has a ship which is named after her, Rani Abaka. So this is one Rani. The other Rani is even lesser known. She is Velu Nachiyar of Shivagangai in Tamil Nadu. She was in fact she was the person who led the first freedom struggle somewhere in 1780, much before the 1857 War of Independence. So she also had been trained in warfare, and and she knew 3 languages: English, French, and Urdu. And then she was married to the king of Shivagangai. They fought in the Polygar Wars,
yes.
Which was this was a very difficult wars that the British had to fight in Tamil Nadu. and the king was killed. So she came onto the throne, she became a regent, and then with the help of Hyder Ali, she gathered together an army in which there was an army for women. So there was a women's army over there. And then she, through her spy network, she got to know where the ammunition dump was of the British. And then 2 warrior soldiers, 2 women from her women's army, they doused themselves in ghee and they jumped and they set fire to themselves and they jumped into that ammunition store and blew it up. So
that was the first human bombing incident.
Suicide bomber. She devised a suicide bombing actually. So this is another great queen, another very, very brave queen. And the government of India has at least recognized her in 2008 by coming out, releasing a postage stamp in her name. So these 2 queens, I think, should be definitely, the distinguished women of India.
They should. Yes. Thank you, Sutapa. I mean, this is something which was a learning for most of us. And I think these kind of queens...
This book has both the stories. So you can pick it up and read them.
It's a book written by her.
It's the latest book that I've come up with.
And it's available for sale here.
Yeah, it's right there. Okay? The Birth of My Nation.
Alka, there's also another lady, more contemporary, who, and there's a coastal guard ship which has been christened after her. And she's perhaps the only lady in India who has won the Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, and the Magsaysay Award. I'm sure you know who I'm talking of.
Thank you, Sangeeta, for bringing in a different facet of women. What Sutapa has said is wonderful too. Very, very rebellious, very strong, militant women, which are required and are very much in the context of the times they were in. I feel very comfortable with the lady Sangeeta has mentioned. Her name is none other than Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. She was born at the end of the 19th century and is a woman who is very, very inspirational to and aspirational to a lot of all of you also in particular. Like Savitri Phule and other women of that period, she too was married at a very tender and young age of 14, but was widowed early. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay was actually from Mangalore, Karnataka, close to where you are. But then what she did was that she was a builder. She didn't destroy. She didn't have to do all that. She was very much part of nation building. And a lot of things what we today as women or as individuals of India have to valorize is our handicrafts, our intangible heritage. And she was one person who in her own very singular and special way did this. She had a very, very difficult childhood because her father died when she was very young. Her older sister died, who she looked up to a lot, who was also married and was doing wonderful things as part of nation building. And then, because the father died intestate, everything went off to the stepson. And Kamala Devi's mother, I think her name was Girija Bai, was also a woman with a lot of self-respect. She refused to take the monthly allowance which her stepson was giving her. So Kamala Devi was brought up in a very difficult childhood, and she also met Sarojini Naidu's younger sister Sumitra Chattopadhyay, who was who was the sister of Harindranath Chattopadhyay. You people are very young, so you would not have seen this great actor Harindranath Chattopadhyay of Indian cinema. So by the time she was maybe in her early 20s, she married Harindranath Chattopadhyay, much against the spirit of the times, because widow remarriage, today it's not even 80 years behind, but
And
you people,
intercaste.
yeah, and you people, you know, these youngsters can't even imagine, you know, that how casteist, how racist our country was. Things have changed so much, and you people actually, in a way, are very privileged.
Yes.
But she had to brave a lot of things. She went to London because her husband went to study there. She studied in London. At that late age, she came back. She joined Gandhi's Satyagraha movement. She became part of the Seva Samiti of Gandhi. She was part of the Salt March. But these are things which she went on doing. But what I would like to really bring to the fore is the fact that it's because of her that the National School of Drama was set up. It was because of her that the Sangeet Natak Academy was set up. It's because of her, you know, we all grew up in Delhi, and when we were young, we would die to get an outfit from the Central Cottage Industries, where the best of craftsmen, their work was brought to people who were not understanding the beauty of Indian craft. That's one of the areas I'm very interested in, the intangible heritage of India.
Crafts Council.
Yeah, and Kamala Devi brought the intangible heritage of India to the how should I say, the ecosystem of Western educated Indians who had the money, who had the power, who had the patronage, but they were somehow not taking that kind of pride in that.
She helped revive the traditional form of weaving.
Yeah.
And she gave a market and a face to these faceless artists.
Yes. So that is why the Crafts Council becomes very important. So, you know, you have people like Popul Jaikar, who's written various things, let's say, for example, the earthen drum, you know, simple objects like the lota, like the Kerala lamp, which we today look at and we actually understand the beauty. She was the one who nudged the Western educated. There's nothing wrong in Western education. We are all part of that.
Yeah.
But to also inculcate a sense of pride and sensitivity to the Indian crafts, the performing arts. She also learnt, I think if my memory serves me right, I haven't done my homework as well as Sangeeta has done, but I talk from memory. I think she also learnt Kudiyatam, another very is languishing today, a form, an operatic dance drama form of Kerala. So you see, she was a woman who was curious. She was a woman who also, got out of her comfort zones, worked hard at the ground level, grassroots level with Gandhi, and also because of the space that she came from. She came from a very privileged family because she was born into a very well-to-do upper-class family. So all the influences of her life, she was a woman of immense taste and aesthetics, and really worked very hard to help the anonymous craftsman. Today, if we are wearing, or as Sangeeta, you can see the necklace she's wearing made of clay, the beauty of Indian aesthetics, which is present to a large extent in urban areas, is thanks to the efforts of Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. And she did it alone, because even her second marriage, she parted very amicably with her second husband. They had a child, a son called Ram. They called him Ram. But she didn't get along too well after many years. I suppose two strong people. We are not being judgmental about it. But that did not stop her from working and carrying on the flag of the beauty of Indian craft, the pride of a new independent India, of freedom, of walking the talk, which she did.
She was actually she's a perfect example if you really want to know how to keep yourself, reinventing yourself and looking and grabbing the opportunities that come your way and keeping your mind open. Someone from Mangalore getting married to a Bengali and getting into areas which were just not so new to her. But she brought out something which has left such a lasting impact that, we are so comfortable with right now. I want to touch one more aspect, which is rampant. It was rampant earlier as well, but not spoken of. People are talking about it. There have been many Me Too instances. There have been several, and it goes on a daily basis, body shaming. Yet, women are still going forward and going to an aesthetic doctor to get themselves corrected. They're not able to accept themselves. But there was a warrior, and quite some time back, and I would like Rashima to talk of her.
Thank you, Sangeeta ma'am. And as you very rightly pointed out, now this is something which I think all of us here can relate with. It happens, I think we've all been through it. Nobody is completely 100% satisfied with the way they look. So there was a lady many, many years back, Rashid Jahan, and she also came from a privileged background. She was born in Aligarh, and her father, in fact, was instrumental in setting up the women's college in Aligarh Muslim University. Her mother was a regular contributor to a women's publication which was also initiated by her father. So I think the groundwork, the upbringing was all there. And she was commonly known as the bad girl of Urdu literature. So she combined two very interesting aspects. She was a doctor, and she was also a writer. So you can imagine what a heady cocktail that was. It's two very powerful skill sets, and she combined them well. So because she was a doctor, she was able to talk about things that women were not comfortable talking about, whether it was sexuality, whether it was their bodies, whether it was women in public places, public spaces, and how they felt, She was able to talk about those things. Some people may have thought she's trying to create scandals, but I think she was creating a lot of food for thought. She was making people think. And if time permits, there is a very short excerpt from one of her very popular writings. It's called Dili Ki Sair. And it really touches upon how women feel encroached upon in public spaces, how they feel ashamed of their bodies, of themselves. And I think it's very beautifully done. So I'm just going to read out a few lines. Well, we sat in the train from here and reached Delhi. There he met some wretched station master acquaintance of his. Leaving me near the luggage, he vanished, and I, perched on the luggage, wrapped in a burqa, there I sat. First this damned burqa, then these cursed men. Men are anyway no good, but when they see a woman sitting like this, they just circle around her. There is no opportunity even to chew pan. One damn fellow cuffs, another hurts a remark, and I, breathless with fear, and so hungry, God only knows. And the Delhi station? Bua, even the fort would not be as huge. Wherever one looked, one saw nothing but the station, the railway lines, engines, and goods trains. And what scared me the most were all those men who live in the engines. So I think it's so raw in its appeal, and I think all of us have, even us supposedly modern women, have gone through this, and we go through it every day. So I think the fact that she was able to write about this, and a lot of her writings are very, if you read them, you'll see there's a lot of honest, there's a raw factor in them. But she made a huge difference to the women's movement in South Asia. So do pick up some of her writings, do research, and I'm sure you'll find them very relevant.
Taking this conversation into the present times, I would like to ask you, Sutapa, why is it that we are not comfortable with who we are? Why is there a thing that we need to be what we perceive to be perfect? and ask Alka also to add to that after.
So I think it's a very common thing that all of us here, and I'm referring to not just women but also men, also the boys and the girls, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we are our worst critic. Am I right? We are always finding ourselves too fat, too thin, not muscled enough, our hair is horrible, or our skin is bad, so something or the other. So we are our worst critic.
How many agree with that? Just 3. The rest of you think up, oh, some more delicately. Okay. That's nice.
So while I think we are all giving gyms and beauty parlors a lot of business, but at the end of the day, Sangeeta, I believe that when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we have to see us as we are. And we have to be proud of what we are, because we are as we do. So it is always... So always remember that whatever we do, we are known for that, not how we look. So let's always remember that, I think, Sangeeta.
Yes, very well put, Sutapa. Thank you so much. Alka.
Yeah. So I would say it in a little bit of a different way. Body shaming has become a new term. As I was growing up, we were told, I think the women have pressure. The pressure comes internally from the women, and internally it comes after they attain a little bit of maturity. So women who don't develop proper breasts feel that they should wear padded bras. Women whose breasts develop early, they are trying to cover them. But what I've noticed today, which is really good, I'm talking of metropolitan. I don't know much about other smaller towns because I've basically lived in bigger cities. I see a lot of young girls, they don't care. They say that don't body shame us. If you pass any personal comment, they become very assertive about it. And I think it's a very positive sign that young women today don't really care that much about whether in our days it was 36, 24, 36. And everybody was trying to be that. But I see that a lot of, I'm talking of the present, I'm not even talking of 10 years ago. I see women, of course, they are jogging. Women are, being bold enough to do tattooing on their bodies. I've just come back from Canada. I think there's a tattoo capital of the world. I see, and for me, I'm very old-fashioned that way. I see them, one girl had Marlboro tattooed on her arm, and I just looked at my friend who was Canadian. I said, how can they do this to their body? She says, no, they think they are beautifying their bodies. And she promptly ticked me off and said, and what about the women in your villages because she was a sociologist, who tattoo? So I just shut up after that. I was put well in my place. But what I see today is that women are taking agency over their body, and many of them are becoming more comfortable with their bodies than before. And I think this body shaming, this word, is a positive step for women having a better self-esteem. So what if you've got fat bottoms? So what if you have small breasts? It doesn't matter. As long as you are healthy and you can, quick on your feet. So this is something, Sangeeta, I'm seeing now a difference. In my time, yes, it was terrible. Mothers would pass comments, husbands would be ashamed of their wives if they weren't smart enough. But I think the young women of today have really decided to take ownership of their body.
I have experienced something different, and I'm talking of a hospital in Hyderabad and a doctor that I know. She's an aesthetic surgeon. She has mothers-in-law coming in with their future daughters-in-law and wanting to get either the nose or the cheek or the bum cheek or whatever corrected, because it's not perfect. It is a booming industry, and the aesthetic surgeons all over the big cities in India are doing extremely well. So this is actually a very big part of accepting that you are not sufficient, not good enough. And this is something which I feel should be taken up by each man and a woman, introspect and say, I'm best, I'm unique. Who's the second person who's like me? And why should I be her or him when he is not me? We have to think about that.
So I agree with you, what you are saying. Absolutely, you are correct. But that's a different strata of society. I'm talking of today's young, empowered woman who doesn't care about what, what her peers say. But this is with a slightly upper middle class who has the money to go to surgeons, celebrities who have nose jobs done, lip jobs done, bariatric surgery. That is all about anti-aging, getting Botox done, body sculpting. But that's a very different lot of people. That's more into the celebrity, where models or actresses have to take care of their bodies, or people with a lot of money. Because for them, they are not using their energies in the pursuit of whatever else. They have much more money, they want to look synthetically perfect. So there is definitely that section. But I'm talking of the more empowered, the more education. It's not about education, it's about enlightenment. So,
yeah. Sindhu, do I have time to take two questions, one from the boys and one from the girls? So let's start with the boys. Anyone would like to ask a question, please? All right, then two questions from the girls. Any questions from you all? Anything on all the topics that we have discovered? What is it that has touched you, and what are your takeaways? Just any one of you, just let us know, what is your takeaway? What do you learn? What did you learn from this conversation?
Firstly, wonderful conversation. I have learned so much. So many new women in our history that especially the younger generation was unknown to. So as we discussed about body shaming and standing in front of the mirror and being the worst critic, it is, as per me, it has not always been on the physical perspective, but mental and career-wise, like where do we stand in the race? So what's your take on that one?
Asking me? You have a choice, and it's about your choice. Today, if medical science has progressed as much as it has, and it has all the opportunities open for you, if you want to go and get something done, go get it done. But only because that is your choice and because you want to get it done, not because somebody is telling you that you're not good enough. So you need to own yourself, own your choices, whether it is about how you look physically, whether it is about your career option or what you choose to become. The women's movement has to be about choice. If you want to be at home and take care of your family, if you want to raise your children yourself and you want to dedicate yourself to that, that is your choice. If you want to go out and do something outside, out of the home, that is also your choice.
Also, I've observed one thing, no offense to the male people here, that while women, it's quite easier for males and men to choose a career, right? They have only few check boxes to click. Unlike women, that we have, societal pressure, then we have pressure of the family, then we have our own pursuits, then this is a very common phrase that I hear from my mom. Thankfully, she's not here to listen to it, but it's like, अगर तुम दूसरों के घर पे अपने ससुराल में जाओगे तो फिर क्या करोगे? तो that perspective, yeah, it's quite funny, I know. So that perspective is also there. While
I think it's a lot to do with if someone is telling you something, you have to think for yourself. Is it something that makes you happy or not? Half the time we women just we spend half our lives feeling guilty about our choices, right? Even as I sit here today among all of you, I feel guilty about leaving my 11-year-old son at home. He has a lot of people to love him at home, but this is my own inner struggle. These are my inner demons, and I think till we get rid of those, what can I say? I think we need to get rid of the guilt. And if you've made a choice, like I said before, own it, and own it proudly.
Thank you, Mom.
See, you must also understand your mother. Mothers are the only people who will love their daughters unconditionally. And she's trying to be protective because of her own lived experiences. Maybe she had ambitions. I don't know your mother. I don't know the background. But I'm just trying to talk as a daughter and a mother. So I understood what my mother and the pressure she was putting on me. I had a very powerful and a very, very strong mother. And she was very hard on me. I understand why she was. I have very protective instincts for my daughter. But you see, we are the sandwich generation. So I have realized that my daughter now has to have her own experiences. But it took me a lot of time not to constantly give her advice and not to be a helicopter mom. So if your mother is saying that, she's speaking from her own circle.
Her circumstance.
And, yes, and the baggage she has carried.
Yes.
So she's just being protective to you. And what I would suggest is that you must be loving to her and just tell her yes, 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 but also charter your own path so that you don't tomorrow be unfulfilled and blame your mother. So it's a very, very delicate path.
I'm sorry, we are really running out of time and we don't have time for any further questions. So sorry about that. But the takeaways which you all could, for both the boys and the girls sitting here is that make a choice, set your goals, and pursue it with passion. You will have the support of the people around you. And just follow it and become, eminent warriors or people who leave a mark, not just in your lives, but in everyone else's life.